You ever feel that punch in the gut after selling something you can't replace? I watched a guy last month unload a pristine 1955 Smith & Wesson Model 29 for $3,000. 3 weeks later, the same revolver at auction went for $8,000. That's not just a missed deal. That's financial pain wrapped in steel. Some wheelguns don't just belong in a safe. They deserve to be chained to it. Today we're counting down 10 rare revolvers that will haunt you if you ever let them slip through your hands. These aren't just firearms. They're investments, climbing in value with every passing year. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment on which of these you'd never part with. Number 1. Smith & Wesson Model 53, chambered in .22. Jet now, here's one of the most ambitious revolvers ever built. From 1961 to 1974, Smith & Wesson took a big gamble. They created the Model 53, chambered in the experimental .22 Jet. It launched a 40-grain bullet at over 2,100 feet per second. That's rifle territory out of a revolver. On paper, it was genius. In practice, physics had other plans. Cases would expand and stick inside the cylinder. Extraction was a nightmare. Accuracy was inconsistent. And the brass inserts designed to shoot rimfire cartridges? Lose one, and the gun's collector value drops like a rock. Pros, extremely rare, represents a unique experiment in Smith & Wesson history. Complete sets with inserts bring huge premiums. Cons, good luck finding ammo. Extraction problems frustrate even experienced shooters. And accuracy never lived up to the hype. Current market. Complete examples with all inserts run $2,500 to $5,000. Number 2. Colt Officer's Model Match chambered in .38 Special. This revolver wasn't designed for defense or duty. It was built for one thing: accuracy. From 1904 all the way through 1969, the Colt Officer's Model Match dominated competitive pistol shooting. It wasn't just a revolver, it was the standard every competitor measured against. Colt's gunsmiths hand-fitted every part. The tolerances were so tight, you'd think you were looking at a Swiss timepiece. Adjustable sights, a target hammer, and a competition-grade trigger gave shooters precision that was decades ahead of its time. Pros, target-grade accuracy, hand-fitted at the factory. Both pre-war and post-war variants give collectors multiple avenues to chase. Proven competition pedigree. Cons, not a carry gun. Those precision sights are fragile, and the light, competition trigger isn't suited for defensive work. Current market. Post-war examples usually run $1,800 to $3,800, depending on condition. Number 3. Smith & Wesson Model 27 chambered in .357 Magnum. This is the revolver that gave birth to the .357 Magnum legend. Back in 1935, Smith & Wesson didn't just release another handgun. They changed handgun ballistics forever. The Model 27 was the very first .357 Magnum revolver, and it wasn't cranked out on an assembly line. It was hand-built by master craftsmen, each one fitted and finished like a custom gun. Collectors still talk about the famous registered Magnum program. Every revolver shipped with documentation recording its production details, barrel length, finish, grips, and even who bought it. That kind of provenance is unheard of today. Pros, the original Magnum revolver, historically significant. Hand-built with pre-war craftsmanship. Registered Magnum paperwork adds unmatched collector value. Cons, sky-high prices, especially for documented guns. You need an expert to authenticate the real registered models. Parts are nearly impossible to source. Reproduction concerns can trip up new buyers. Current market. Expect to pay $2,200 to $4,500 for standard examples. Registered models? $6,000 and climbing. Number 4. Ruger Security 6 in .357 Magnum. Now here's the working man's revolver, the Ruger Security 6. From 1970 until 1988, this was the gun riding in police holsters across America. Ruger didn't chase polish or prestige, they built a duty gun that just flat out worked. It ran music wire springs that almost never failed. The action was simplified to cut down parts that could break. And Ruger's overbuilt steel frame could take abuse that would put other revolvers in the scrapyard. This gun earned its place on the streets because it didn't quit. Pros: music wire springs keep failures nearly non-existent. Simplified lockwork means less maintenance and easier servicing. The transfer bar safety made it one of the safest revolvers to carry, and law enforcement history proves its staying power. Cons: plain looks compared to Smiths or Colts. Fixed sights limited fine accuracy for some shooters. The trigger isn't as refined as hand-tuned revolvers, and aftermarket customization is limited. Market: $650 to $1,200. It's one of the most underrated service revolvers you can still pick up without breaking the bank. Number 5. Smith & Wesson Model 57 in 41 Magnum. This revolver is the definition of missed opportunity. The Smith & Wesson Model 57 in 41 Magnum. Back in 1964, Smith & Wesson and Remington teamed up to give law enforcement what they thought was the perfect service round. Stronger than .38 Special, more controllable than .44 Magnum. The 41 was supposed to be the sweet spot, but departments didn't bite. They skipped straight from .38 Special revolvers into 9mm automatics, which left the Model 57 as the cartridge that law enforcement should have adopted, but didn't. Pros: built on the N frame, it'll run hot Magnum loads all day long. Ballistically, it outperforms most service revolver cartridges. Low production numbers make it collectible today, and it balances in the hand better than almost any big-bore wheel gun. Cons: finding factory 41 Magnum ammo is like spotting a unicorn. Even reloaders struggle sourcing brass and bullets. Holster makers never catered to it in big numbers. Market: $1,800 to $3,500 depending on vintage and condition. Irony stings, this was the revolver with the perfect police cartridge that no police wanted. Number 6. Colt Diamondback, chambered in .38 Special and .22 LR. Now this one. This is a revolver so beautiful, most folks feel guilty pulling the trigger. That's the Colt Diamondback. Built from 1966 until 1988, it blended the utility of the Detective Special with the prestige of the Python. Think of it as Colt's luxury mid-size sedan, practical to carry, but dressed like a showpiece. The ventilated rib, the adjustable sights, and that slick Colt action made it a shooter's dream. And the compact frame meant you could actually take it outside the display case. Pros: you're getting Python-level quality, but in a smaller frame that's actually practical. That vent rib and target sights make it more than just a pretty face, it's a performer. Colt offered them in .38 Special and .22 LR, giving you options for defense or training. Cons: collectors sometimes dismiss it as the lesser Python. The smaller frame isn't built to digest hot .38 loads endlessly, and the action is so intricate that most modern Smiths avoid working on it. Market: .38 Special versions run $1,500 to $3,200. The .22 L to R models, around $1,200 up to $2,800. And here's the kicker, Colt admitted they actually lost money on every Diamondback they made. Number 7. Manurhin MR-73 in .357 Magnum. You ever run a revolver that was engineered so tight it makes a Swiss watch look like a farm tool? That's the Manurhin MR-73. When France needed a sidearm for their elite GIGN counter-terror and hostage rescue teams, they didn't want mass production. They wanted perfection. So Manurhin designed a revolver with match-grade tolerances, cold hammer-forged barrels, and lockwork that borders on indestructible. Every M to R-73 left the factory grouping inside 2 inches at 50 yards. That's competition accuracy in a duty gun built for life-and-death missions. Pros: GIGN combat adoption proves this revolver's reliability isn't theory, it's history. Cold hammer-forged barrels give it precision most shooters will never outshoot. The timing is so strong it's nearly impossible to wear out. Accuracy levels rival custom-built revolvers. Cons: import prices make these a serious investment. Parts and service often require ordering from Europe. Metric tolerances can frustrate American gunsmiths. And the manuals? Usually written in French. Market: $2,800 to $4,500 depending on import and condition. Number 8. Dan Wesson, .357 Maximum SuperMag. If you've ever fired a cartridge that makes a .357 Magnum feel like a .22 L2R, you've probably shot the Dan Wesson .357 Maximum SuperMag. In the early 1980s, Dan Wesson chambered a revolver for the experimental .357 Maximum. And this wasn't just a stretched Magnum case. It was pushing rifle-like velocities out of a revolver platform. The round was so hot it caused case-stretching issues, which eventually killed its commercial future. But that same failure is what makes these revolvers collectible today. Pros: the only production revolver ever chambered in .357 Maximum. Comes with the signature interchangeable barrel system, and because production was extremely limited, rarity is baked in. Cons: factory ammo is nearly impossible to find. You'll need to handload. Even careful shooters dealt with brass stretching issues. The barrel swapping system scares off casual collectors, and you need special tools just to change configurations. Current market: $1,800 to $3,500 if you can score a complete multi-barrel set. Number 9. Colt Single Action Army, first generation, chambered in .45 Colt. When you pick up a first-generation Colt Single Action Army, you're not just holding a revolver. You're holding the Old West in your hands. Built from 1873 until 1940, these were crafted one at a time, each one hand-fitted by true artisans. Pros: every revolver carries authentic Western history. The craftsmanship is impossible to duplicate with modern mass production. Case-hardened finishes are one of a kind, no two guns alike. Serial numbers can be traced right down to the exact production year, and for pure investment, these outperform plenty of traditional portfolios. Cons: the price of entry is brutal $5,000 just to touch a worn example. The actions are delicate compared to modern revolvers. Black powder metallurgy means you can't feed them full pressure loads, and the market is flooded with fakes and refinished guns, so authentication is a must. Current market: anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, condition depending. Number 10. Smith & Wesson Model 29 .44 Magnum. This revolver needs no introduction. The Smith & Wesson Model 29. Released in 1955, it wasn't built for Hollywood. It was built for serious hunters facing game that fights back. This was before Dirty Harry made it a legend. Back then, .44 Magnum was an experimental cartridge that most people thought was complete overkill. Smith & Wesson took their end frame, beefed it up, and created a revolver that could digest pressures that would shred lighter frames. The result? A 6-shot hand cannon throwing a 240-grain bullet at 1,400 feet per second. Pros: instant collector recognition thanks to Clint Eastwood. 6-shot cylinder capacity. Barrels available from 4 inches all the way to 10. Original box and paperwork can double collector value. Cons: premium ammo runs $3 a round. Massive muzzle blast that intimidates new shooters. Factory grips aren't ideal for big hands. That cylinder gap sprays debris right into the guy standing next to you. And vintage end frames don't have the same aftermarket support you see today. Current market: expect to pay around $1,200 for a shooter and well past $2,800 for clean early runs. These 10 revolvers are far more than firearms. They're historical artifacts. Every one of them holds value that goes beyond steel and wood. Once they leave your safe, you may never see them again. Because when another collector gets a hold of one of these, they're not letting it go. That's the rundown. Drop a comment with the rarest revolver in your collection. Would you ever part with it, or is it locked down for life? And as always, like, subscribe, and stay tuned here on Arms Advisor, where history, precision, and investment meet at the firing line.